Captain Joseph DiPietro here. Our next video is going to be on Umapit. Once again, just a reminder, this video is not the only thing you need to do for annual training. So make sure you're looking up the slides, reading the orders, and taking care of whatever your unit requires you for the annual training requirement. This video is just to enhance the learning and give you another resource to help you out. So first thing, Unit Marine Awareness and Prevention Integrated Training. Umapit is an annual training for all Marines that covers stress management and awareness of suicide, substance misuse, domestic abuse, and child abuse and neglect. So we're going to talk about all those topics here, maybe some things that you haven't thought about in the past, some things to help you as a leader of your unit at any level, and maybe pick up some tips and tricks to help reduce some of these negative things that impact our units in our Marine Corps. First thing we're going to talk about is stress management. So think about some of the things that causes you stress. If they cause you stress, they're probably causing your other Marines stress. And if it doesn't apply to you, then maybe think outside the box. Think of some things that might be stressing out other people, right? Family issues, financial issues. Within the Marine Corps, you might be having promotion issues. Maybe you're just struggling on your boards. Maybe you're just struggling to increase your PFT score, your CFT score, struggling on the rifle range, whatever it might be. There's a lot of things that can cause stress out there. They might be related to you, they might not be, but I'm sure one of your Marines is probably going through something that you might not have thought of, or maybe doesn't apply to you. So make sure you do your research, and by research I mean get to know your Marines, figure out what makes them tick and what's going on in their lives. And if you don't know them, you're not going to be able to tell what's going on or see that they're acting differently or anything like that. So those are some common causes of stress. There's a bunch out there, anything from hobby issues or interest issues. Right now, one of the biggest causes of stress is that we can't see each other. This is during the COVID travel ban, the regulations of not being in groups. So maybe you just miss each other. Maybe you miss your fellow Marines. Maybe you miss being part of a team, and that could be a cause of stress. So keep that in mind, and remember that moving forward when you're in those positions. So how do we deal with stress? This is a great question. A lot of different people are going to react differently to stress, and some might be in a good way, some might in a bad way. So first, we're going to talk about some healthy stress management. What I like to do when I'm stressed is I like to go to the gym or work out. That kind of keeps me going and make sure I realize, like, hey, everything's good. We're at the gym. I know we got some things going on, but it's going to be all right. Okay, so working out, that might be a good, healthy stress management technique. Working, whether it's going to work or when you get home, if you like gardening or if you like doing the yard, doing work around the house, that might be a good example of stress management. Maybe just to keep you occupied, maybe keep your mind off of whatever's bothering you at that time. So that might be something else to do. Other healthy stress management might be spending time with other people, right? So maybe you have a lot going on with your family, and something that you could release some stress with is going to hang out with your friends. Maybe some fellow Marines out there. If you're in the barracks, then why don't you go down the hall and go spend some time, play some video games, watch a movie with your boys, and it might help out, release some stress there. So those are just some examples of healthy stress. If you do something else out there, that's great. As long as it's benefiting you and not hurting anybody else, then I consider that a healthy form of stress management. Some unhealthy stress management, which is probably going to come down later on, is going to be some of these abuseful things. So substance misuse, substance misuse or substance abuse, domestic abuse. You might take it out physically or emotionally on your family, things like that. Those are going to be versions of unhealthy stress management. So try to avoid those and channeling that energy and that stress into some of those positive, healthy stress management forms. That's going to be huge moving forward for you and for your Marines that you're taking care of. All right. Next topic is going to be suicide awareness. So this is a tough one. This is one that has been plaguing the Marine Corps for a while now, at least for as long as I've been in. You hear all the time about folks who decide to end their lives prematurely. And it's sad. It's really tough. It hurts the unit. It hurts the families. It hurts those Marines where they're coming from. So their families back home, their towns maybe, they might be impacted by that suicide. So it's something that we really like to cut down as a Marine Corps. It's happening way too much. One suicide is too many. So being aware of maybe some of the causes, some of the signs, and then what to do when you see those causes and signs is something that's going to be great moving forward. So of those causes, I think the stress, some of the things we talked about with the stress might be the causes of those ideations. So those two are definitely related, right? If you're overwhelmed with the stress that you got going on with your family, with work, whatever it might be, that might be one of the first steps to leading to that suicide or that suicidal ideation. Not feeling like you belong, maybe you're lost, or you're not being a part of the team, or you don't feel like you're part of the team, that might be a cause of suicidal ideations. So don't, exclude anyone specifically or constantly be berating people. By all means, you need to yell, then go yell. If you need to punish someone, then punish someone. But if you're unnecessarily constantly doing something to someone to either mentally, physically, or kind of emotionally break them down, that might be something that leads to suicide or suicidal ideation. So be aware of that, especially when you're in those leadership roles. Be aware of those signs. So other signs of maybe suicide or suicide awareness. If someone's acting differently, if they're typically an outgoing person and all of a sudden they're not really talking, if they typically spend time with you or with your friends and they haven't been going out with you, if they like to go to the gym a lot and then suddenly they just kind of stop going to the gym. Work performance is a good sign. So if you're typically a good worker, then all of a sudden you see their work slacking, that might be a good sign. And I know I'm going from like good things to bad things a lot, but it might be a bad thing to a good thing too, right? So instead of if they're normally social and they become unsocial, that's what we typically think of. Maybe they're an unsocial person and all of a sudden they're really social with folks. Now, I hope that's something that happens for positive reasons, but just be aware of those kind of behavior changes. Those are going to be some signs. And then unknown signs, right? So there are some things that we can't see, all right? And that's something with suicide awareness that you just have to be aware of. We can do everything that we can in our power to help take care of one another and to be there for each other and to look out for one another, but there might be some unknown and unseen signs that someone's going through some tough times, especially when maybe our sleeves are down. If you see marks, that's obviously a clear sign of something going on. If you see slashes on wrists or maybe in the neck area, those might be some signs that you might not be able to see necessarily depending on clothing. Their activity at home, right? So once they go home, unless you live with them or you spend time with that person, with that Marine, you might not know what they're doing, right? So if they go home and typically they're playing video games and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden they stop playing video games and they just sit around the house all day, you might not know that's going on. So that's where maybe if you talk to them and kind of, through counseling or, informal counseling, just see how your Marines are doing, that might be a good way to see what's going on in their lives. So those are some known and unknown signs of that might lead to a suicidal ideation. And then responses, right? So all these things kind of that we talked about beforehand are like noticing it and seeing it, but what if it happens, right? What if, someone goes through something and, God willing, they make it through alive? What do we do? So some things that we can do, even if it's just an ideation or if somebody even says something along the lines of, hey, I'm not really happy with my life. I don't know if it's worth sticking around for. What do we do for those Marines? So you've got a bunch of options. Some are, a little higher levels than other, but the first thing you can do is just be there for them, right? So you can be that friend, be that brother, be that sister for them, and listen to them. Let them talk it out for you. Then that way, not only do you gain some information on what they're going through or what they're thinking, then maybe you can try to point them in the right direction for the next step of care. That next step might be through your chain of command, right? So specifically for junior Marines, you might enlist the help of your platoon sergeant, platoon commander, or whatever it might be, and say, hey, this Marine's got something going on. I think maybe you should talk to them. That's great. Good on you for trying to help out that Marine. Otherwise, you can direct them to chaplain, to mental health services. There's a bunch of resources out there, and if you don't know of those specific resources or of those contacts, be sure to ask your leadership, your platoon sergeants, platoon commanders, company commanders, first sergeants, things like that. That's what they're there for, and they can help you point that Marine in the right direction. So those are some of the responses you can do for them, and then there's always that case that you walk in on something happening or you see something going on that you need to be aware of. Don't be afraid to call law enforcement, and don't be afraid to act, right? So I actually had a Marine one time who walked in on a friend who was trying to cut his wrist, and he kind of tackled him to the ground, told him, hey man, it's going to be all right, we're going to get through this, and that could have very potentially saved that Marine's life. So don't be afraid to act. Be careful putting yourself in harm's way though, right? Especially when we're talking maybe firearms or something that can be a little bit more dangerous. You got to be careful jumping in there, but we're Marines, right? We got to take risks, and taking risks for each other is what we do. So don't be afraid to step up and help that Marine out when they're in their low point. Another thing that stress might lead to, or a reaction to stress, is going to be substance misuse. So you guys have all probably taken your tobacco cessation class, and it is what it is. I'm a staunch opponent of tobacco use. I don't really get it. I never have gotten it. It's expensive. It's something that I don't think you really need. But if you do it, then that's up to you. But for all of these things, so we're going to talk about drugs, alcohol, and tobacco. Just be aware of their use. and be aware of what your Marines are doing with them, right? So when we talk about drugs, everyone thinks, like illegal drugs, and those could be common substance misuse reactions to stress, right? If we're talking cocaine, ecstasy, LSD, whatever it might be, obviously those are illegal, period. But more typically, you might be using drugs such as ibuprofen, painkillers. You might be overusing prescribed drugs, so you might be very well prescribed a sleeping aid or whatever it might be, and you overuse it. Those are all going to be examples of substance misuse. So don't just think of it as like marijuana or cocaine or something like that. There's a lot of things out there that can be classified as drug misuse. And just be aware of what's going on with your Marines. If you know that they're prescribed something or if they're going through something medically, then just check up on them and see how they're doing, and like everything else, just be there for your Marine. Alcohol misuse. So be very aware of what your Marines are doing at home and what they're doing on the weekends. So I'm probably a little bit more conservative than most when it comes to alcohol, but if you're getting behind the wheel of a car, if you're doing anything that requires you to drive or to go somewhere, then alcohol might not be the best answer. Another thing that I see typically, especially with regard to alcohol misuse, is if you've got Marines that are going home or if they're going back to the barracks and they're drinking every single night, especially if they're drinking a lot, then there might be something else going on there, right? So it might just be frustration with work, or maybe they're stationed in a place they don't want to be, whatever it is, and that's okay. I would just challenge you that if you're drinking every single night, especially if you're drinking a lot, then there might be some underlying issues going on out there, and make sure you look into that and make sure that the Marine's okay. And certainly don't let it get to the level of drunk driving, or if they drink so much that they are getting sick or hospitalized or whatever it is. That's not anything we want to do, but that should probably go without saying. And lastly, tobacco. So talked about tobacco a little bit earlier, but that would just be something to keep an eye on. So if you've got Marines who are smokers, or if they dip, keep an eye on what they're doing. If you realize that they're a pack a week guy, or they're a 10 a week guy, and then all of a sudden they're going up to 2, 3, 4 packs or 10s a week, then that might be something that you want to look into. Okay, that might be a result of a lack of sleep at home. It might be a result of frustration or boredom or whatever it is. So take advantage of the positional leadership at every level, and observe those Marines and what they're doing on their day-to-day basis, and make sure you just look out for them and see that, hey, I see that you're using tobacco at an excessive rate. Like, what's going on in your life? So just check up on those Marines and take care of them as best you can. All right, and last kind of stress reliever thing we're going to talk about here is domestic abuse. So a lot of people think domestic abuse is just, hey, you go home and you beat your wife. And while that's certainly one of the worst ones that we can do, there are lots of forms of domestic abuse out there, and you might not think of some of them naturally when you think of domestic abuse. So domestic abuse can be anything that's related to harmful actions towards your family, unnecessary restrictions on your family, things like that are going to damper lifestyle at home and dampen your family life there. But it can be for spouses, it can be for children, and it can be for pets. We don't really associate that with domestic abuse, but if your Marines go home and they're beating their dogs, or doing something weird to their cats, then that might be a sign of overstress at work, and it leads to the domestic abuse. So keep an eye out for those kind of things. It's not just spouse on spouse beating. Another thing with domestic abuse, especially with regard to family, that we kind of overlook is that we always sort of teach it and assume that the domestic abuse is the Marine beating on the spouse, right? Typically, as well, it's going to be male Marine goes home and beats female wife. Well, all those things don't matter, right? It can be female Marine goes home and beats male spouse. It can be male Marine gets beat by male spouse at home. So it's not really gender specific. So any kind of that combination can be the result, right? And that includes the spouse beating the Marine when they come home. We don't really think of that very often. So be aware of that. If your Marines are coming to work and they're tired, and maybe they have bruising or they're showing signs of domestic abuse, keep that in mind, all right? We always, again, think of it as the Marine doing something to the family and not the other way around. And then different forms of domestic abuse. We kind of always think it's physical and beating, and we're going to see, bloody noses and black eyes. But physical isn't the only form of domestic abuse that's out there, right? So financial abuse, you guys have probably all heard stories of how, Marines will cut credit cards for their spouses and for their family members, or they're going to the field for a month, or they're going on deployment and they leave them, no money or very little amount of money, or they fill the freezer with frozen food and take their credit card away and they say, hey, this is all you have for the duration of my deployment. Those are all versions of financial abuse, right? So if you're limiting your spouse or you're limiting your family from getting what they need, then that can be a version of domestic abuse. Right now, if you got a spouse that goes out and they spend their $1,000 a weekend at Lululemon, then you might want to have a conversation with your spouse, and just having that conversation saying, hey, listen, you got to cut it out. We can't afford this lifestyle. I wouldn't consider that domestic abuse. But if you say, listen, I'm not going to give you the food that you need, or I'm not going to give you the clothes that you need, or we're going to live in an environment that's not conducive to raising kids. So if you're leaving trash all over the house and things like that, those are all forms of domestic abuse as well. It's not just that physical contact. And then emotional abuse too, right? So if you go home and all you do is you yell at your spouse, or your spouse yells at you, then there's something wrong there. Learning how to communicate it's key. One of the reasons why we want to make sure we have that relationship before you get married. But hey, you rushed into it. You're young. I got married very young, and you're having those communication issues. Then maybe sit down and try to talk it out before you start getting into that yelling phase. All right. Sometimes you're gonna raise your voice. You're gonna have arguments, and it's not great, but it's okay. But when you get to that point where you're just constantly beating down your spouse, or they're beating you down to the point where you just lose your self-esteem, that's also domestic abuse. So again, there's a bunch of different forms of it. There's different ways that you can kind of construe that, and we want to eliminate that as much as possible. All right. So those are the topics for Umapit. Once again, make sure you read the orders and view whatever PowerPoints are given to you by your unit. And if you see anything like this happening, this is where us as Marines and as leaders, we need to step in and take care of those folks and make sure that either they stop or they get the proper help that they need to work through it, especially when we're talking with the stress, right? If we can eliminate the stress and make their lives better in and out of work, then maybe these other things aren't going to happen. We can try to nip it at the point. So hope you enjoyed Umapit, and if you have any questions, feel free to send them my way. Have a great day, Marines.